in New York. The United States just attacked Venezuela's capital, hitting a military this operation. There were multiple.
Late last night and early today,
and captured President Nicolas Maduro.
Este es nuestro patrio trasero.
The conflict between the U.S. and Venezuela. Did you know there's been a biblical prophecy about this foretold long ago? Just in the first 3 days of 2026, bombs were exploding, fires raging non-stop, the ground shaking like it was crying out in anger. The U.S. struck right into Venezuela, a quick raid, grabbing the country's leader, leading to bloodshed and chaos spreading everywhere. At the same time, an earthquake tore through Mexico. Fires swallowed up those fancy New Year's parties in Europe. Blizzards buried parts of America under deadly cold. It all hit at once, no warning, no time for folks to get ready. Was this just a coincidence, or a sign that's been warned about for a long time? Do you feel how urgent things are getting? If the world changes tomorrow, are you ready? Stick around for the next part, and if you can, leave a prayer in the comments for the world, for your family, and for yourself, that the Lord keeps you safe in these troubled days ahead. And now, let's dive deeper together into the shocking truth that God mentioned a long time ago about the conflict between the U.S. and Venezuela, the situation between the U.S. and Venezuela right now. In the first days of 2026, international news kept getting interrupted by flashing red emergency alerts. In just a few hours, the fragile peace in Latin America was torn apart when the United States launched a big military operation against Venezuela. What we thought was just diplomatic tension has now crossed the line into open conflict, happening so fast the world couldn't keep up. On January 3rd, 2026, coordinated airstrikes hit Caracas and several military targets in northern Venezuela. Reports spreading across global media say the operation involved about 150 planes taking off from more than 20 U.S. bases, from Florida down to the Caribbean. In less than a day, the Venezuelan government confirmed that President Nicolas Maduro and his wife had been captured in a quick raid and flown out of the country. The early casualty numbers shocked people around the world. At least 115 are believed dead in the Caribbean area and suburbs, with hundreds more hurt. Satellite photos and videos going viral on social media show black smoke rising from neighborhoods, traffic completely stopped, and folks rushing out of their homes in panic. For many of us, those scenes aren't distant news anymore. They bring a real sense of worry close to home. Right after the operation, tough statements from Washington added fuel to the fire. The U.S. president said America would take over running Venezuela to keep the region stable and protect global energy security. That quickly sparked heated debate. Since Venezuela has the world's largest proven oil reserves, around 300 billion barrels, more than Saudi Arabia, to a lot of observers, oil isn't just in the background anymore. It's front and center in this fight. World reactions came almost right away. Russia and China both strongly condemned the U.S. military action, calling it a serious violation of international law and national sovereignty. In Latin America, governments in the region voiced worries that a wider war could easily break out. Colombia and Brazil started tightening border controls, getting ready for a new wave of refugees everyone knows is coming. In all this, daily life for Venezuelans quickly turned into an emergency. Even before the bombs fell, the country was struggling with inflation, once estimated over 1,000%, long food shortages, and rising violence. After the airstrikes, hospitals in Caracas and big cities were overwhelmed, power and water cut off, and long lines of people desperately trying to leave town. Looking at the whole picture, it's hard not to think of old warnings about war and chaos. In the book of Matthew 24:6, Jesus said, "You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for this must take place." Back then, those words weren't seen as news, but set against today's flood of reports, they feel like an eerie mirror. At the same time, economies tied to global energy supplies started shaking. Crude oil prices jumped wildly in just hours after the conflict news spread. Experts warned that if this drags on, the world could face a new energy crisis, leading to more inflation and unrest in countries already fragile from past global shocks. On social media, especially X, tons of posts analyze how Russia and China are quietly backing Venezuela through oil, gold, and financial deals. Even without official confirmation, that chatter is enough to raise fears that the US-Venezuela clash isn't just between two countries. It could turn into a proxy war among big powers. For a lot of us, the feeling that the world is getting pulled into something bigger is getting stronger. The book of Ezekiel 38:12 mentions armies marching to seize, spoil, and carry off plunder. Reading that verse now, with Venezuela's oil routes, ports, and resources in the spotlight, plenty of folks wonder if it's just history repeating itself, or a pattern humanity never really learns from. In Europe and Asia, diplomatic responses keep showing how serious this is. The European Union put out a statement with deep concern and called for restraint, while Singapore, a key financial hub, warned about ripple effects on world trade. Those statements sound familiar, but this time, they come with a sense that old ways of handling crises are losing their power. In the middle of all these headlines, it's easy to get lost in numbers, maps, and strategy talk, and forget that behind every story are millions of lives turned upside down. Families leaving their homes, kids growing up to air raid sirens, and once busy cities now quiet and tense. This isn't just about one faraway country. It's a reminder of how fragile our world really is. The book of Luke 21:25 talks about times when nations will be in anguish and perplexity at the roaring and tossing of the sea. That verse doesn't name any country, but the confusion and fear it describes matches the global mood right now strangely well. War doesn't just happen on battlefields. It creeps into people's minds through every news alert and image. At this point, no one can say for sure where the US-Venezuela conflict will end or what fallout we'll see in the coming months. The only thing clear is that the world order is going through some heavy shaking, where what used to feel stable now seems shakier than ever. And with these signs piling up, the big question hangs in the air. Is this just another geopolitical crisis, or the first piece of a much bigger picture we're about to face? The prophecy about wars and rumors of wars. Matthew 24:6-8. Jesus said this a long time ago, way before anyone had modern political maps. You will hear about wars and rumors of wars. Don't panic. Those things have to happen. But it's not the end yet. One nation will rise up against another, and one country against another. There'll be famines and earthquakes in different places. But all that is just the beginning of the troubles. His words didn't start with comfort. They started with a straight warning about what people would have to face. When you put this Bible verse next to what's going on between the United States and Venezuela, it's hard not to see the connection. Before any real bombs fell, the world spent months hearing rumors of war, strategic bombers flying around, exercises right near the border, one tough statement after another. We've heard it, we've seen it, and we've gotten used to those signs until they turned into something real that can't be denied. Starting in 2025, a lot of defense news reported more military activity around the Caribbean area. Those long flights by strategic bombers covering thousands of miles, joint exercises, and shifting alliances weren't secrets anymore. Back then, it all got called something safe: deterrence. But by early 2026, the line between deterrence and actual war was completely gone. Matthew 24 doesn't stop at rumors. It goes on to say one nation will rise against another. When US forces got directly involved, when a head of state was captured, and when other big powers reacted right away, those old words suddenly carried new weight. For you and for all of us, the question isn't whether there's war anymore. It's where we are in this warning. The scary part of the prophecy isn't that it predicts one specific war, it's that it describes a pattern that keeps repeating. Wars following wars, trouble piling on trouble. Jesus didn't say people would learn their lesson and stop. No, he made it clear these things have to happen. That's not guesswork, it's something unavoidable. Ezekiel 38:7-9 goes further, talking about alliances forming before big invasions. Get ready, be prepared. You and all the hordes gathered around you. After many days, you will be called to arms. Looking at how Russia and Iran responded to the Venezuela conflict, it's tough not to think of the alliances described there. Military and economic ties that seemed separate are now coming together around the same hotspot. What really shocks a lot of folks isn't the war itself, it's the reasons behind it. Venezuela isn't just some random country on the map. It's got the world's largest proven oil reserves, around 300 billion barrels, a number big enough to shape global policy. When resources become the center of the fight, the prophecy in Ezekiel starts looking even clearer. Ezekiel 38:12 says, "You will go up to plunder and loot, to turn your hand against lands that were ruined, but now have people living there again, against a people gathered from the nations who have livestock and goods." Even though it was written in ancient times, this verse describes exactly the kind of drive that's repeated through human history, resources leading the way for weapons. When you look at Venezuela in that light, the match is worth thinking about. Maybe what worries people most is how fast it's all moving. Things that used to take decades to build up now happen in months or even weeks. Those rumors quickly turn into military action, and that action sets off a chain reaction around the world. We're living in a time when the Bible's warnings aren't delayed by distance or time anymore. Matthew 24:7 goes on. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. Around the same time the conflict broke out, the world also saw natural disasters, food shortages, and supply chain breakdowns. Sure, each one can be explained on its own, but when they hit all at once, they paint a bigger picture. Just like the Bible says, these signs don't come alone, they come in waves. For you, this might feel familiar. Turn on the news, and everything seems to be getting worse, like the world has lost its brakes. For us, that familiarity is the most dangerous part. God's word doesn't warn us to cause panic. It's to keep us from going numb to the clear signs. Ezekiel 38:11-12 talks about a land without walls, a place that's vulnerable to stronger forces. Venezuela, with its long economic struggles and instability, fits that picture in a frightening way. When a country is weak inside but rich in resources and becomes a target, the Bible stops feeling like ancient history. It's a warning ringing out today. The key point in Matthew 24 isn't describing disasters. It's that phrase, the beginning of birth pains. That means the wars and chaos aren't the peak, they're the start. Once you see that, the surprise over the connections turns into a more serious question. If this is just the beginning, what's waiting ahead? The Bible steps forward like a direct warning, like a trumpet blast on the city wall. Not to scare us, but to wake us up. Not to list every detail of events, but to point out the path humanity is on. Like Matthew 24:8 says, all these are the beginning of birth pains. When you put that verse against the US, Venezuela conflict, and all the global upheaval around it, it's hard to call it random coincidence. God's word doesn't say everything will end right away. It hints that a bigger chain of events is starting. At this point, the warning is clearer than ever. It's not about who's right or wrong in one fight. It's about where humanity stands in the timeline the Bible described long ago. And if the trumpet has sounded, what happens when the rest of the prophecy keeps unfolding? If war is just the starting point, then what the Bible describes next is what should really make the world tremble. And that's exactly where this story has to go from here. The United States as the Great Babylon in Revelation. The darkness in Revelation doesn't start with a map or a specific name. It uses symbols, images layered on top of one another, like someone deliberately hiding the truth behind layers of code. When modern numbers, alliances, and wars are placed alongside those symbols, they start to mirror each other. And right then, we who are living in this time can't just stand back and watch like it's some distant story. If war used to appear as the first loud noise, here the bigger picture starts to come into view. A woman dressed in purple and scarlet, drunk on power and wealth, sitting on a strange beast, ruling over the kings of the earth. That image in Revelation isn't meant to retell old history. It's more like a code sent to the future, waiting until the world is ready to see itself in it. Revelation 17:5 gives the first real key, when John writes the symbolic name plain and clear before letting the reader match it up. On her forehead was written a name, Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes and of the abominations of the earth. Many Bible scholars today believe this Babylon isn't an actual city made of bricks anymore. It's a picture of a global power system where economy, culture, and political influence all blend together. In that view, the United States often comes up as a clear example to look at, not out of love or hate, but because of its real role in the world order. With the biggest economy on the planet, the US dollar is the main currency for payments, controlling trade, finance, and public debt for dozens of countries. American culture, from movies and music to consumer lifestyles, seeps into every corner of the globe, creating an appeal that's both attractive and controversial. Revelation 18:3 describes plainly how Babylon works before it falls, and this verse is often held up as a mirror to today's reality. For all nations have drunk the wine of the passion of her sexual immorality, and the kings of the earth have committed immorality with her, and the merchants of the earth have grown rich from the power of her luxurious living. Here, immorality isn't just about personal morals, it's about power compromises. When nations and economic elites tie their interests to one wealthy, powerful center. In that context, Venezuela is often mentioned as a prime example of a relationship that's both cooperative and confrontational. The country has estimated oil reserves of around 300 billion barrels, the largest in the world, and it was once a key energy supplier to international markets. When economic interests mix with politics and ideology, conflict is hard to avoid, and every move carries consequences far beyond one nation's borders. Revelation 18:13 lists the goods that make Babylon rich, from gold and silver to very specific items, and among them is oil. This detail surprises a lot of folks, not because it proves anything absolute, but because the similarity is hard to ignore between the ancient description and today's energy-based global economy. Oil isn't just fuel, it's power, a political tool, and the cause of more than a few wars over the past century. Still, not everyone in the Christian community agrees with this interpretation. Some conservative pastors and scholars say the Great Babylon refers to an invisible global system that could include many countries at once, not just pinned on the United States. Others think it's a picture of a decaying civilization in general, where people worship material things and power more than God. And any nation heading down that path carries the spirit of Babylon. The debate gets heated when modern preachers like Jonathan Cahn connect the United States to ancient Israel, arguing that a country founded on faith but drifting from its core values will face similar judgment. On the other side, critics point out that linking prophecy to specific political events can oversimplify things dangerously and miss the Bible's historical context. Amid these differing views, one detail often stands out as a symbolic irony. In public messages, Venezuelan leaders have repeatedly called for prayer, mentioning Jesus and national faith as a spiritual anchor. In contrast, U.S. decisions in international crises are usually framed in terms of interests, security, and strategy. This contrast, whether surface level or deeper, can make you wonder, is this clash not just between nations, but between two ways of seeing power and faith? Revelation 18:2 rings out like an uncompromising declaration, and it's the part that makes many people uneasy when comparing it to today. Fallen, fallen, is Babylon the Great. She has become a dwelling place for demons. In the Bible's flow, this collapse doesn't come purely from outside forces. It's the inevitable result of a system pushing itself to the limit through ambition and pride. The question isn't really whether America is Babylon or not. It's how much of the Babylon spirit described in Revelation shows up in the modern world. When we look at global trade, energy dependence, and nations willing to bend morals for gain, that question is tough to dodge. And right there, a quiet pause comes in, forcing each of us to place ourselves in the big picture. If Babylon isn't just a place, but a system, a spirit, then where do we stand in it? Are we benefiting, opposing, or just watching from the sidelines? These connections between Revelation and the modern world aren't a final verdict. They're an invitation to think deeper. Because if the Great Babylon is really present in some form today, then the collapse described in Scripture isn't a far-off future story anymore. It's a process, quietly unfolding. And from there, the story has to move to an even deeper level, where the next trumpets sound, revealing what the world, up to now, isn't ready to face. Venezuela in Prophecy, the southern land, and how God's word is coming true. You see thin, tired faces standing in long lines at soup kitchens, skinny kids holding tight to the few bags of food they get, patients spilling out into hospital hallways because there's no medicine. These aren't rare sights anymore. They've become part of everyday life in Venezuela. Streets that used to be busy are now lined with locked-up metal gates. Markets sit quiet, and money loses value faster than people can keep hope alive. In all this, folks don't come across as just numbers in reports, but as real lives caught in a storm that's out of control. History has seen plenty of great empires fall apart from the inside out. The Roman Empire collapsed when its economy went off track and morals broke down. Ancient Babylon was rich and powerful, then turned to dust because of idol worship and treating people badly. Venezuela, in the 21st century, is different in some ways, but it has familiar patterns. A country full of natural resources, yet its people go hungry. A government that controls everything but can't provide basic needs. These similarities make a lot of us stop and think, because history doesn't usually repeat exactly, but the same kinds of rules often come back around. In Daniel 11:44-3, the prophecy talks about a clash between the king of the south and the king of the north, where powers fight over control and wealth. At the time of the end, the king of the south will push against him, and the king of the north will storm at him like a whirlwind. Those words, when you look at geography and today's alliances, lead some to point to Venezuela as part of that south, rich in resources, unstable, and caught in global power plays, not because of the name, but because of its place and situation. When crowds of Venezuelans cross into Colombia, Brazil, or even farther to make a living, it naturally makes you ask, how can a country with the world's top oil reserves let its people end up like this? And if history shows these kinds of tragedies don't just happen by chance, is what's going on now part of an old pattern repeating? These questions aren't meant to jump to quick answers, but to open up a bigger view of causes and what comes after. Ezekiel 38:12 talks about what drives alliances in troubled times. To take plunder and booty, to turn your hand against lands that were ruined but now have people living there again. These words don't just describe a military attack. They uncover the real nature of fights dressed up as politics. Venezuela, with its oil, gold, and minerals, draws in outside powers while showing how fragile a nation gets when its own strength weakens. Looking back at Egypt in the book of Exodus, the 10 plagues weren't just supernatural events. They were a judgment on a stubborn, idol-worshipping system of power. Exodus 7-12 records a series of disasters that forced an empire to face the results of its pride. Venezuela today isn't ancient Egypt, but it's going through modern-day plagues, runaway inflation, shortages of food, disease, violence, and a wave of people leaving like never before. The similarity is in the outcomes, not the exact form. When these pictures show up all the time on the news, many watchers can't help wondering if it's just bad policy or something deeper going on. Some say it all comes down to economics and world politics. Others see hints of a moral law at work. Different views don't change the fact that real people are suffering right now, and the story doesn't stop at Venezuela's borders. Jeremiah 50-51 describes people fleeing when Babylon falls. Get out of Babylon. Save your lives, each one of you. That scene echoes in the groups of people leaving home with just the basics and ongoing worry. Even though the settings are different, the common thread is the breakdown of what once seemed like a stable order. When these words are set beside today's Venezuelans on the move, the Bible stands out like an accusation. It points out that injustice and abuse of power, no matter the era, always lead to collapse. Debates in Christian circles also show the divide in understanding. Some pastors and scholars say prophecies are symbolic and shouldn't be tied directly to one country. Others think the signs are too clear to ignore, and Venezuela is just one early link in a bigger chain of events. Each side has its reasons, but they all agree on this: Bible words aren't there to feed curiosity, but to warn about the results of group choices. Revelation 18 paints merchants mourning when a center of power falls. The merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her. If today's conflicts keep spreading, the effects won't stay in one country. They'll trigger a worldwide chain: economic, political, and humanitarian. Venezuela, in that light, is like a mirror showing a future others might face if old patterns repeat. What's happening doesn't need harsh judgment. The reality speaks for itself. When history, the present, and Scripture meet at one point, silence weighs more than any conclusion. Because if these signs are just the start of the accusation, then what comes next in the Bible is what should make the world pause and wonder, how far will this chain of events go? Prophecy about a chaotic year, 2026, mankind entering the final times. Time isn't moving slowly anymore. The first days of 2026 hit with a rush of events, like every hour and minute is squeezed tight. The calendar just turned, and the world was already shaking, burning hot and freezing cold all at once. In that feeling, we're not just watching from the outside anymore. We're right in the middle of an urgent reality, where every breath brings questions about what's coming soon. Matthew 24-7, 8 sounds like a warning drum for this time. For nation will rise against nation. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are but the beginning of the birth pains. Those words aren't easy comfort. They're straightforward, like a final notice about what comes next. When you put them next to what's happening now, the urgency feels clear, because the signs aren't scattered anymore. They're piling up at the same moment. On January 2, 2026, the ground in Mexico shook with a 6.5 magnitude earthquake in Guerrero, just 35 miles from Acapulco. 2 lives were lost, 17 people hurt, hundreds of homes cracked, and more than 1,070 aftershocks followed like non-stop knocks. That scene wasn't just numbers on a seismograph. It was families panicking in the dark, where the earth isn't a solid base anymore. That fragile feeling is familiar, because we've all known what it's like to feel helpless when something we thought was steady suddenly gives way. Those shakes remind many of what's written in Amos 8:8. Shall not the land tremble on this account? The Bible doesn't give scientific details, but it points straight to how all creation reacts when order breaks down. When the earth trembles, people's hearts do too, and fear spreads like a wave, not just a personal feeling. Right before that, in the early hours of January 1, 2026, at 12:45 a.m., fire broke out at the Vondelkerk in Amsterdam, an old church standing for over 154 years. Those stone walls that had seen generations pray collapsed in flames, leaving ashes and black smoke on the first day of the new year. Many went quiet looking at those pictures, because a sacred symbol burning always touches something deep inside. That sense of loss helps us understand that not everything built by hands lasts forever. Jeremiah 7:14 warned, "I will do to this house as I did to Shiloh." That's not aimed at one spot. It's judgment on empty worship, when people trust buildings more than the one who gives life. The fire in Amsterdam, seen that way, is a serious reminder that symbols can't replace a real relationship. Just minutes later, at 1:30 a.m., on January 1, 2026, a bar in Crans, Montana, Switzerland, went up in flames during a New Year's party. 40 people died. 115 others were hurt. Music and laughter replaced by fire sirens and cries. The contrast is sharp. A moment of celebration turned to mourning in an instant. Looking at that, no one can stay unmoved, because joy can vanish so fast. Revelation 18:8 says, "Therefore her plagues will come in a single day, death and mourning and famine. She will be burned up with fire." That's not meant to spread panic, but to show the inevitable end of endless luxury. When fire comes in one day, all fake security collapses, leaving the plain truth about human life. Around the same time, the Northeast U.S. got hit hard by a snowstorm from January 1 to 3, 2026. Rochester and Buffalo got blanketed with 6 inches. Some areas forecast up to 16 inches, winds gusting 90 miles per hour, and temperatures dropping to -65 degrees Fahrenheit. Roads shut down, power out, families huddled in cold darkness. In that scene, people feel small against nature's power, a feeling we can imagine on those endless winter nights. Isaiah 28:2 says, "Behold, the Lord has one who is mighty, like a storm of hail." Natural disasters don't need long explanations to show power beyond human plans. When snow blocks paths and wind howls through homes, the message is clear. No one controls tomorrow their way. These events don't stand alone. Big fires in Switzerland, floods in Southern California, heavy snow in upstate New York, all crammed into the first days like a chain reaction. That fast pace makes time feel compressed. Hard to call it just coincidence. In the flood of news, it's easy to see the tiredness and worry spreading, because no one knows where the next trouble will hit. Matthew 24 doesn't just list disasters, it puts them in an unstoppable process. These things aren't to feed curiosity, but to wake up consciences. When troubles pile up, the question isn't why, but how do we prepare? That urgency slips into every news report, every picture, every story of loss. Revelation 20:21 opens a view of judgment and a new order, where everything old passes away. Anyone not found written in the book of life was thrown into the lake of fire. That's final judgment language. No room for debate or delay. Putting those words next to early 2026, the sense that time is short gets sharp, like a last bell before the door closes. Amid those sad scenes, faith doesn't come across as some abstract idea, but as the only solid anchor left. Not faith in systems, technology, or prosperity, but in the one above all changes. When everything can fall apart in one day, what's left is our connection to God, where we find peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. Revelation 22:12 ends with a direct promise. "Behold, I am coming soon, bringing my recompense." No safe distance in those words, just a call to decide now. As 2026 starts with disasters and chaos, that message rings louder than ever, urging humanity to face its choices. What happened in those first days doesn't need long commentary to show how serious it is. Reality speaks for itself. When time tightens and signs hit all at once, faith isn't an extra option, it's the way to survive. And right there, the journey doesn't end in fear, but opens a final invitation. Turn back, grab hold of grace, before the door to this era closes for good. Looking back at the whole picture that's unfolded, from the US, Venezuela conflict to the string of disasters hitting hard at the start of 2026, it's clear these things aren't standing alone anymore. Wars, Natural disasters, fires, and freezing cold are all showing up at once, like pieces falling into place in some bigger plan. The world isn't just shaking politically. It's being shaken right down to its spiritual foundations, forcing us to face that old question that's never felt more urgent. Who's really in control of history? In Revelation 18:4, the call comes through loud and clear. Come out of her, my people, so you don't share in her sins or get hit with her plagues. This isn't about packing up and moving somewhere else geographically. It's an invitation to separate ourselves from the systems, the lifestyles, and the values that have brought humanity to the edge. When you put this verse alongside everything that's just happened, the message gets real plain. The end times aren't just about what's coming. They're about the choice we have to make right now. The big picture the Bible paints doesn't end in darkness. Even with empires falling and fear spreading everywhere, the promise of Jesus coming back remains the bright light all the way through. In Matthew 24 and Revelation 22, his return isn't described as a disaster for those who are awake and watching. It's the fulfillment of justice and hope. Repentance isn't some abstract idea anymore. It becomes the only way out of the cycle of judgment and into salvation. 2026 may be roaring with war and calamity, but that doesn't mean the world's been abandoned. On the contrary, it's right in the middle of all this chaos that God's sovereign rule shows itself clearer than ever. When people finally see their own limits, faith stops being just an optional extra and becomes the real place of refuge. Staying alert, repenting, and praying won't make the events go away, but they will help keep our hearts steady in the storm. So the call right now isn't to fear, it's to act in faith. Take time to pray for this hurting world, for your family, and for your own heart, to stay fixed on the Lord. Be bold in sharing your faith, because even one small testimony could become a light for someone else in these dark times. And if you can, leave a prayer or a sincere thought in the comments below as a sign of staying awake and standing together in faith. If this has touched your heart, liking, sharing, and subscribing isn't just support. It's a way to make sure others don't miss these warnings and calls to God's love. Every share could open a door for someone searching for answers in the middle of the chaos. Finally, thank you to everyone who stayed until the end. May the Lord protect you and your family, give you peace that goes beyond understanding, and keep you all in His loving arms, no matter how much the world around us keeps shaking. Amen.
What a way to end the year across the state of California, right? Just
brought life-threatening conditions to millions of people celebrating Christmas.
Why do natural disasters keep hitting one after another right at the end of the year and the start of the new one, bringing chaos to everyone? The sky over California turned dark in a flash, winds howling like crazy, rain pouring down hard, slicing through the ground. The storm roared from San Diego up to Los Angeles, wiping out streets, swallowing roads, turning busy cities into raging rivers rising every second. California, the land of wealth, tech, and entertainment, is now a mess, with thousands fleeing, time feeling squeezed tight. Is this just climate change, or a sacred sign that's no longer hidden? And are you listening? 10 moments are about to unfold like 10 doors opening, each one a warning. Come along with me as we pull back the layers of truth cleverly hidden beneath these chaotic scenes. And don't forget to leave a prayer in the comments below, so God knows you've heard His warning before the final times draw near to humanity. And now, so you don't have to wait long, I'll get started right away with cars swept away by floodwaters and scattered on muddy banks. In just a few seconds, we see dozens of cars in the outskirts of Los Angeles get swept away by the flood, flipping over, crashing into each other, and ending up stuck on muddy banks, like wrecked ships after a fierce sea battle. No longer the everyday way to get around, they turn into quiet reminders of a moment when people were completely powerless against nature. The scene comes through clear in every frame. areas along the Los Angeles River, home to thousands of families, now soaked from heavy rain that went on for days from a Pacific storm. News reports say sections of the I-5 freeway had to be shut down completely, and local officials kept sending out urgent evacuation warnings. And when we look at those abandoned cars piled up on one another, the feeling isn't curiosity, it's a chill down your spine. The murky water rushed along at 20 to 30 miles an hour, tearing up the asphalt roads, carrying cars off like they were toys. Mud bubbled up, swallowing tires, flooding the insides, while smaller streams snaked around, twisting like poisonous snakes to destroy whatever was left. Rescue teams could only watch from a distance, sirens blaring non-stop, because getting even a few yards closer meant facing deadly danger. In the middle of all that chaos, a familiar image from the Bible suddenly comes alive in a scary way. Genesis 7:11 says, "In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month, on the 17th day of the month, on that day all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened." Those cars swept away by the flood today echo that ancient memory when water couldn't be held back anymore, and everything built by human hands turned fragile. The damage adds up quick. Dozens of vehicles totally ruined, many neighborhoods without power, some folks hurt while trying to get out, and thousands of families forced to leave their homes in just hours. On the screen, we see police and firefighters holding up their hands to signal stop, like even they were trying to hold back a force way beyond control. In this moment, the Bible isn't there to judge. It's there to explain. The flood isn't just water. It's a reminder of how small we are compared to the power of creation. Those crushed cars aren't just lost property. They're a symbol of the idea that people can always stay in charge of everything. And as the water still hasn't gone down, with those piles of cars scattered around like steel graves, the question hangs in the air. If this flood is just the beginning, what's waiting for the whole city up ahead? The floodwaters like a giant monster cutting across the road. The highway vanished in a flash as the rushing water tore through Interstate 8 and turned a lifeline into a deadly drop. In just minutes, the familiar stretch connecting San Diego to busy industrial areas was sliced clean, asphalt giving way to a sheer cliff, vehicles frozen in place amid terror too sudden to name. Interstate 8 has long been a vital artery for transport, where heavy trucks hauling hundreds of thousands of pounds roar by every day. Now, it stood blocked by a sudden flash flood. Warnings from Fox Weather about flash floods in suburbs and old burn scar areas weren't just forecasts anymore. They were harsh reality, as water poured down from higher ground, merging into a torrent that cut across the road like an invisible hand, slamming the brakes on the whole city. The water roared, muddy and swirling like a hungry beast, swallowing empty land stretching for miles in an instant. Cars sat trembling, drivers gripping the wheel tight, knowing that moving forward even a few yards would mean disaster. Can you picture yourself in one of those cars, stuck in that standstill line, with raging water ahead, darkness behind, and no way back? In that moment, people feel painfully small. No technology, no engine, no map can stand against the swelling force of the water. Things we thought were solid, concrete, steel, speed, all quietly surrender. And in that silence, an ancient message starts to echo. Revelation 16:12 puts it first, like a key unlocking something. The sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water dried up to prepare the way for the kings from the east. Seeing the flood cut across Interstate 8, it's hard not to think of roads interrupted by God's hand, closed or opened for judgment. In Iraq, the Euphrates is slowly drying due to severe drought, noted by Asia News as a strange, ongoing sign. Here in California, a road gets blocked by water, opposites, but carrying the same message. It's no accident that the Bible talks about the way before judgment. A blocked road isn't just about traffic. It's about the paths of habit, of overconfidence, of believing there's always an escape. The trumpet warnings sound in a very modern way, not with horns, but with the roar of water ripping through our world. And if that torrent doesn't stop, if more roads get cut off in the dark, the open question remains: is the path to heaven still open, or slowly closing right in front of humanity? The fierce flood sweeps through and leaves behind a pile of rubble. The floodwaters have receded, and the video starts with no more roaring sounds, just a heavy silence that's almost suffocating. The camera slowly pans across a neighborhood in San Diego, where cozy homes once stood, now reduced to torn-up walls and bare foundations. No one's running or shouting anymore. There's just a gentle breeze blowing through the wreckage, like it's whispering something old and sad. These are areas in Southern California that went through wildfires not long ago, leaving the soil weak and stripped bare. When the heavy rains came down, the dirt and rocks couldn't hold, turning into fierce debris flows, just like CBS Los Angeles had warned about. In the video, mud covers everything. Homes ripped right off their foundations. Trees toppled and piled on top of each other like nameless bodies. You see cars half buried in the mud, some with only the roof showing, as if swallowed whole in one quick gulp. Familiar roads are gone, carved into deep, twisting gullies. It's easy to feel that deep sense of loss when a lifetime of hard work gets wiped out overnight by the rain. Early reports from local officials say hundreds of homes were badly damaged. Many families lost their places to live entirely, and the cost is figured in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Emergency shelters were opened up fast, with rescue teams, volunteers, and church groups pitching in to hand out food, blankets, and drinking water. Amid all that destruction, there's still a glimmer of something truly human, people coming together in tough times. But the longer you watch the video, the more it feels like an accusation than just a news report. Genesis 6:13 comes up as a direct charge. And God said unto Noah, The end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. And, behold, I will destroy them with the earth. The ruined homes, uprooted trees, and erased roads stand as proof of a world that's been hurt too deeply. It's not that God is absent, but that we've filled this earth with greed, overbuilding, and ignoring limits. The great flood in the Bible wasn't just water. It was a cleansing when things got too out of balance. And looking at these pictures, it's hard to deny that accusation still rings true. God used Noah to warn people, not to destroy without reason, but to call them to turn back before it was too late. The question hanging in the air after the video isn't about the rubble right in front of us. It's about what's next. Is this just the aftermath of one flood? Or the start of a bigger reckoning that's slowly coming into view? The road cracked open, river pouring out like a waterfall. The pavement sank in one quick moment. No warning siren, no safety buffer, just a sharp crack, and the asphalt we trusted to hold strong broke apart like snapping a cookie in half. The video freezes right there, at the instant when a road in the outskirts of Los Angeles stopped being a road and turned into a gaping hole. From that first crack, water rushed in, not a trickle, but a surge, boiling up, churning, shoving mud and trash down the roadway like a waterfall. These highways that handle hundreds of thousands of tons every day, running close to rivers and the coast, got torn apart by the muddy flood, just like USA Today had warned about widespread coastal flooding. The force of the water snapped barriers, swept away signs, erased the line between river and street. The next footage shows the road ripped up in big chunks, water roaring through white and fierce, growling without stop. People stand back and watch, helpless, as something that used to connect our lives now turns into a danger. We're used to thinking concrete and asphalt mean control, only to realize nature can crush them as easy as cookie crumbs in your hand. Local authorities keep sending out warnings, telling folks to stay away from roads near rivers, evacuate low areas because water levels might keep rising. Rivers that used to stay neatly inside their banks now spill over, carrying dirt, rocks, trees, threatening thousands of lives. Road closures and travel restrictions come one after another, like urgent knocks on a fragile door of safety. In the middle of all those warnings, the Bible comes up, not as comfort, but as a chilling reminder. Revelation 8:8 hits first, like a sign worth reading closely. The second angel blew his trumpet, and something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea. A third of the sea became blood. The picture of barriers breaking, the ocean and waters raging, echoes in every frame of water flooding the road. It's no accident that the second trumpet ties to the sea in upheaval. When people build barriers, raise levees, pave roads, and think everything's under control, one rush of water is all it takes to bring it down. It's a warning that the boundaries we draw aren't always respected. This isn't just an infrastructure mishap. It's a sign that the barriers we've built are breaking one by one. When the road cracks open and the river pours like a waterfall, the trumpet warning has sounded loud and clear. And if that water keeps spreading, the question left hanging at the end of the video is, will that waterfall stop here or keep going until it swallows everything we ever thought was safe? Winds that turn snow into ice, freezing everything around. The wind comes out of nowhere, howling across a gray sky, whipping sharp snow pellets that slam into the ground, rooftops, and bare trees. In just a few hours, the familiar world gets worn down, shattered, and locked in ice. It's a heartbreaking sight that takes your breath away. Standing there looking at it, have you ever wondered just how small we are compared to nature's unseen power? In Northern California, fierce windstorms roared through the Bay Area, with gusts up to 50 miles an hour, bringing heavy snow and cold hail. Trees snapped at the roots, billboards crashed down, roofs got ripped apart like they were paper. Busy roads turned quiet overnight, with only tire tracks left in the thick snow, reminders of a long night nobody wants to think about. The damage goes beyond numbers. Thousands of homes lost power in the freezing cold. Whole neighborhoods got cut off, schools shut down, and daily life just stopped. Folks stood amid the wreckage, eyes red from tears, hands shaking from the chill and the hopelessness. Some held their kids tight in dark rooms. Others knelt down to pray, knowing there wasn't much else to hold on to. In the middle of those tears, people felt a deep shared sorrow. Not everyone lost their home, but everyone lost that sense of safety. In the quiet of the snowstorm, soft prayers went up, not loud or showy, just hoping the winds would pass soon and leave a bit of hope for morning. That's when the Bible comes to mind, more as a gentle reminder than a judgment. Genesis 7:4 stands out like an old memory. For in 7 days I will send rain on the earth, 40 days and 40 nights. And I will wipe from the face of the earth every living thing I have made. The story of the Great Flood isn't just about destruction, it's also about testing faith and obedience. Some say this is just normal extreme weather, that science explains strong winds, heavy snow, and wild climate patterns. But even scientific reports admit the strange mix of long droughts and fierce snowstorms, as nature keeps pushing us to our limits. Maybe the real question isn't about explaining it, but about hearing the message behind it. Noah's story doesn't end with the flood. It ends with an ark and a promise. These winds today might be a similar test, where God isn't looking for fear, but calling for repentance and turning back. In the cold and rubble, faith becomes a small flame, but warm enough for the soul. And then the question hangs in the air as the wind keeps blowing. If this is just one trumpet in a series of warnings, is this wind the final call, or just the first reminder for those still hesitating to turn back? The Palmdale Highway swallowed by floodwaters. A quiet has settled over the Palmdale Highway in a way nobody's used to. No honking horns, no engines roaring, no steady stream of cars like always. Just the slow pullback of water and wind whistling through bare trees, leaving a heavy emptiness, like the road just lost its life. Before, Palmdale was the main artery for traffic in the whole area, handling hundreds of thousands of vehicles every day, the constant weight of metal pressing down on the asphalt without a break. Now, all that hustle is gone, replaced by a scene of gridlock and gloom, where nature has quietly but firmly taken back control. The floodwaters didn't rush in all at once. They rose slowly, seeping through small cracks before widening into long, twisting breaks. The road surface is scattered with chunks of broken concrete, trees tipped over and lying around, like final periods ending a familiar way of life. Looking at this, it's easy to feel the power of the water, invisible, yet strong enough to do what thousands of tons of vehicles couldn't every day. The contrast hits hard. One side, the memory of endless traffic, the other, the stifling silence of now. Local folks see the road swallowed up without needing any explanation, because they know this isn't just an infrastructure problem, it's a deeper break in the usual order of daily life. In the middle of all this, the Bible comes up as a way to make sense of the upheaval. Revelation 16:12 is mentioned first with the book and verse. The sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water dried up to prepare the way for the kings from the east. The picture of a river running dry isn't just about geography. It's about clearing a path for a process of judgment. Recent reports about the Euphrates River in the Middle East have caught a lot of people's attention, with severe drought, dams holding back water, and climate change causing the river to shrink faster than expected. There are studies warning it could dry up in the coming decades, or even sooner, like an ancient picture slowly coming into focus today. When you put Palmdale next to the Euphrates, a quiet question forms. Could broken roads and drying rivers be pieces of the same message? Not loud, not angry, just a rearrangement of the order of things according to a will greater than ours. That sign is seen as a reminder that God's ways can open up judgment in ways few would expect. And in the silence of Palmdale today, the question still hangs. Is this just a temporary stop, or the start of a bigger collapse waiting ahead? Up close with the rushing floodwaters. The footage starts off fast and intense, like it hits you right in the face with what's really happening. The camera shakes. The view tilts as murky water suddenly pours into neighborhoods in Los Angeles, sweeping away everything in its path. There's no time to get ready, just that feeling of things getting pulled away too quick, too hard, way beyond what anyone can handle. The flood surges down streets that used to be quiet, rising up to doorsteps and then crashing right into people's homes. Trees bend and snap like they're breaking. Cars spin around in the swirling current. The sound of metal crashing mixes with panicked shouts. Watching this, you're not just an outsider anymore, because if you hesitate even a second, that flood could drag everybody into the same chaotic mess. In areas close to rivers, thick, muddy water spreads everywhere, turning the line between roads and riverbeds into a blurry chaos. Rescue videos shared all over show folks clinging to rooftops or power poles, waiting to be pulled up in the nick of time. Familiar places to live get wiped out in just hours, leaving a deep sense of helplessness all around. As the water starts to recede, the numbers come out. Hundreds of homes badly damaged, whole neighborhoods without power or running water for days, economic losses running into tens of millions of dollars. Some people lose everything they've built up over a lifetime. Families have to leave what they once called home. Amid piles of mud and broken belongings, the pain can't be measured by any statistics. In that moment, the Bible comes to mind like an old but familiar warning. Revelation 8-7 is mentioned with the book and verse right up front. The first angel blew his trumpet, and there came hail and fire mixed with blood, and it was hurled down on the earth. A third of the earth was burned up. The picture of hail and fire mixed with destruction brings up the idea that natural disasters aren't just physical events, but signs of something shaking things up on a deeper level. Right after, debates heat up on both sides. One side says this is just the inevitable result of climate change, uncontrolled city growth, and overloaded infrastructure, pointing to scientific studies on extreme weather. The other side sees in this string of disasters a wake-up call, as nature pushes past limits like never before. Between those two views, everyone has to ask themselves where they stand. Are we just seeing random weather messes? Or are these the first trumpet blasts sounding in modern times? The flood has spoken loud and clear, and the big question left open is, how far will it keep sweeping before things really start to change? Strange column of water shooting up from the ground. It all started with a sight that's hard to describe. Right in the middle of muddy floodwaters rushing over an asphalt road in San Diego, the ground shook a little, and then, from what looked like a harmless crack, a column of water suddenly shot straight up into the sky. It didn't spread out like regular floodwater. It blasted upward, standing tall, higher than the nearby trees, as if something had punched a hole through the earth from below. That scene stopped the rescue teams in their tracks. Their special vehicles had to slam on the brakes. Rescue lines got pulled tight and then reeled back in, because no one dared take another step when the road was turning itself into a deadly trap. In the chaotic flow, that water column kept shooting up without any familiar rhythm, strong one moment, weaker the next, like it was breathing. Watching it, you really feel how helpless people can be when all our usual ways of handling things just don't work anymore. The videos show the rescue crews calling for more help over and over, trying to mark off the danger zone but failing because the whole thing was so puzzling. It wasn't just water pouring down from above. It seemed like something was rising up from underneath, breaking apart a road that was supposed to be solid and strong. In that moment, you don't need a long explanation to know there are forces out there beyond human control. The Bible comes across like a serious warning. Genesis 7:11 gets mentioned first, and then the verse rings out clear. In the 600th year of Noah's life, on the 17th day of the second month, all the springs of the great deep burst open, and the windows of heaven were opened. The picture of the great deep bursting open suddenly feels scary in a real way when the ground right in front of us is erupting. Not much different from the description from thousands of years ago. Facing that view, experts quickly offer a scientific explanation. They say sudden high pressure in underground water from days of heavy rain, combined with overloaded drainage systems and existing cracks under the road, caused this geyser-like burst, like a hidden spring forced backward. From a technical standpoint, it's a rare event, but possible in extreme conditions. But no matter how reasonable the explanation sounds, that uneasy feeling doesn't go away. Science can describe how it happens, but it can't ease the fear when we realize the ground under our feet isn't as reliable as we thought. Between the Bible's warning and the experts' breakdown, the question just hangs in the air. If the earth is starting to erupt right in the middle of a modern city, where is our safe ground really? And was that strange water column just a rare accident? Or the first sign of some kind of hell on earth slowly opening up? The muddy flood swallows part of a house. 15 feet. That number isn't just on some chart. It's right there in front of us. In a video showing a house in Los Angeles getting completely taken over by muddy water on the first floor. When the water gets up close to the roof overhang, you and I both know the line between safe and gone is thinner than ever. A quiet neighborhood by the river has turned into a giant water trap. From what people on the scene reported, the water rose from 10 to 15 feet in no time, pouring in through windows, steps, stairs, and forcing folks to scramble upstairs in a panic. Walls that used to protect whole families are now just faint lines against the heavy push of the flood. In the video, the water doesn't rush. It creeps up, slow but unstoppable, like it's counting every second of survival. Furniture floats around. Memories built over a lifetime get swept away in minutes. That moment shows how fragile life is, with just one floor standing between making it through and losing everything. We see the fear building not in screams, but in breathless silence. The Bible comes up here like a haunting reminder. Genesis 7:20 is mentioned first. Then the verse rings out. The waters rose 15 cubits higher, and the mountains were covered. That number 15, once seen as a symbol of the Great Flood, now matches exactly what's happening in a modern neighborhood. The matchup gives viewers a real chill, but not everyone sees the event in a spiritual way. Some say it's due to low land, poor drainage systems, and burn scars. weak spots left after wildfires that make water pile up fast and high in weird ways. These views come across calm and logical, trying to fit the disaster into science and city planning. On the other side, plenty of folks think science only explains how the water rises, not why these extreme events keep happening harder and harder. Between those two sides, where do you stand? Is this just the natural result of a damaged environment, or a sign that an ancient story is playing out again? No matter which view you take, the facts stay the same. The muddy flood has swallowed the whole first floor of the house, and the fear still hangs in the eyes of those trapped upstairs. If the water keeps rising, the question isn't why anymore. It's, will the second floor be high enough to protect people from whatever comes next? Traffic jammed. Folks left helpless watching the floodwaters rise. Darkness fell quicker than expected. It wasn't the usual night darkness, but a feeling of despair spreading as heavy rain put out the lights, and the sky and ground blended into one heavy gray. In the slow but steady rising floodwaters, hope faded bit by bit, like the whole city was holding its breath, waiting for some unnamed judgment. On Interstate 5, cars packed tight in the rain and dark. Power out, signs fading. The only sounds left were rain tapping steady and water rippling over the road. No moving forward, no backing up. People stuck in that moment of waiting on the edge, where every second tested patience and faith. The water wasn't rushing fierce, but enough to lock the wheels in place. Cars sat still like lonely islands, just a few yards apart, but feeling like different worlds. The usual bustle of the day gone, replaced by a heavy quiet. We feel it clear, the helplessness when nature's power, without any noise, can overpower everything. That quiet stretched on, like a test for all of us. Nobody knew what to do but wait, listen to the rain, the wind, our own heartbeats. In the darkness, silent prayers came up. No fancy words, just hoping to make it through the night safe. The despair here didn't explode. It sank deep, weighing on every breath. The Bible came to mind like a final verdict, not just a hint or explanation. Revelation 8:12 was quoted earlier. Then the words rang clear. The fourth angel blew his trumpet, and a third of the sun was struck, and a third of the moon, and a third of the stars, so that a third of their light might be darkened. Darkness isn't just no light, it's the mark of a trumpet blast, dimming what people thought was solid and sure. That comparison made the moment feel chilling. When light gets taken away, folks can't rely on speed or technology anymore. They face straight on how small we really are. The judgment doesn't need long accusations. The silence and darkness alone expose the limits of human pride. In that standstill, everyone has to ask themselves where they're headed, and if the path they've chosen still has any light to guide them. The darkness still hung over everything, traffic still jammed, water still rippling on the road. That waiting moment hadn't ended yet. And as the night got thicker, the final question hung in the rain and quiet. In this darkness, is the next trumpet about to sound and close it all? So, you and I have gone through 10 moments capturing the devastation of the bloodthirsty flood hitting California right before the new year, leaving despair for so many people. Please leave a prayer for those poor victims in the comments below and share your kind heart, full of love, with those in tough situations. 10 moments have passed like 10 heavy tolls of a bell. From floods sweeping away roads, from underground springs bursting up, from whirlwinds carrying hail, to darkness covering the highways. All these aren't just scattered events anymore. When you connect them, they sound like trumpets blasting one after another in Revelation, each one louder, each sign clearer, making us stop and face how fragile life really is. The Bible tells one consistent story, from start to finish. Genesis recalls Noah quietly building the ark, while the world laughed, before the great flood came to cleanse everything. Back then, the water didn't just destroy, it drew a line between those who stayed alert and those who turned away. That same picture echoes in today's floods, not to scare us, but to remind us that being prepared and having faith is never a waste. Revelation picks up the story with trumpets bringing disasters and wake-up calls. Revelation 16:12 is mentioned earlier. And then the words ring out. The sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river, the Euphrates, and its water dried up to prepare the way for the kings from the east. The Euphrates is slowly drying in real life, right alongside the storms and floods in California, leading many folks to connect it to those predictions about 2040 spreading on forums and online. No matter how you look at it, that overlap makes you pause and wonder. All this points to one thing we can't avoid. Humanity is getting one last chance to wake up, not in panic, but with humility, looking again at our way of life, our faith, and our duty to the Creator. These signs aren't here to end things right away, but to warn, like trumpets sounding before the final judgment. But the Bible always leaves an open question. If people keep ignoring it, keep seeing what's happening as just random chance, what comes next? Could the worldwide Great Flood, once recorded as humanity's terrifying memory, happen again in a different, fiercer way, with no ark ready in time? Before wrapping up this journey, take a quiet moment to reflect. If you have a prayer, or even just a sincere thought for the world and yourself, feel free to leave it in the comments below. If these warnings mean something to you, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any signs the Lord is sending in these times. Thank you for sticking with me to the end. May the Lord keep you and your family safe through all the upheavals of this world. Amen.
For many in California, the holiday season has arrived under emergency alerts.
For many in Southern California, this Christmas was quite...
What if tomorrow doesn't come the way you expect it to? When America, the symbol of strength and order, suddenly starts shaking from landslides, floods, huge tornadoes, and strange behavior from all kinds of animals, the things we're used to begin to crack and fall apart. It's not just one accident, not some rare event, but one blow after another, like they're coming down from above, signaling that a time of chaos is starting. 10 moments will come one by one, swallowing everything up, exploding right in front of you, like 10 chapters in a modern book of Revelation. Reports from the USGS and NWS show disasters in America are shooting up. Atmospheric rivers drowning California, dust devils rising in the desert, animals acting like they know something we haven't figured out yet. You think this is just coincidence? Or maybe the final warning? Keep going. Because right after this, the veil of truth will be lifted, and the deep messages from God will be revealed bit by bit. We can't wait any longer. We're going to start right now with 1. Major landslide from heavy rain. The air before the disaster wasn't loud. It felt heavy, like holding your breath too long. Down in Southern California, the sky stayed low and gray, with rain coming down steady for days. In that uneasy feeling, you could really sense how fragile things we think are solid can be. No one was yelling, no sirens going off, just this chilling gut feeling that something was waiting behind the curtain of rain. And then, the mountains started to move. In the Santa Monica Mountains, where the steep land is used to wind and rain, all that water from the atmospheric river storms soaked the ground until it couldn't hold anymore. According to the USGS, landslides in California have been happening more often in recent years, wrecking hundreds of miles of highways and leaving thousands without homes. But in that moment, the numbers didn't matter, because what was happening right there felt like a force way beyond anything people could control. The rain poured down hard, and suddenly, a huge section of the mountain, hundreds of feet across, shuddered and broke away, crashing straight down onto the road below. Dirt and rocks rolled like waves, smashing everything in the way, with dust rising up so thick it blocked the sky. It wasn't just a landslide. It was the kind of sight that leaves you standing there quiet, watching nature act like it's punishing something unseen. In that instant, when the ground shook, an old warning seemed to echo. Luke